Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where I meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, culture makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home what we affectionately call upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome Executive Director of St. Francis Cabrini Shrine, Julia Attaway. Julia Attaway has lived in Upper Manhattan for nearly 30 years, the last 5 of which have been in Inwood. A freelance writer, editor, and marketer, she was actively involved in developing community events as she raised her 5 children here. 4 years ago, she accepted the position of Executive Director at St. Francis Cabrini Shrine, and there she has had community concerts, hosted community events, and because Mother Cabrini is the patron saint of immigrants, done outreach to educate neighbors on immigration issues. The shrine of St. Francis Cabrini houses the remains of Mother Cabrini, the patron saint of immigrants. This peaceful chapel overlooking the Hudson River is nestled right here in northern Manhattan. The land was purchased by Mother Cabrini herself in 1899 to house a boarding school for upper-class girls, and she used the tuition to fund orphanages and free schools for the poor. The shrine continues today to be a sacred space to pray, rest, and draw close to Jesus through the intercession of St. Francis Cabrini. We're going to talk to Julia about her work and the work of the shrine itself and so much more. But first, let me welcome you, Julia, to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's so great to finally have you here.
Hello. Thank you, Aaron.
You bet. Good being here. Nothing major going on in your life, just constantly working nonstop. But you've been in the neighborhood for a long time, and obviously you're familiar with the shrine, being a longtime resident. So would you mind sharing your path to the shrine and why it's been a good fit for you?
It's an interesting path. It was an unexpected path, which is the way all the good paths are, right? You know, if you're trying to set out to do what you want to do, often that doesn't work as well as just following sort of the path of water as it goes downhill, right? Mm-hmm. So my family attended Mass at the shrine for many, many years. I had no particular attachment in that sense. And until as life developed and my needs developed, I needed to pray. I needed to do things. But I was very much aware as my children were growing up that there's a huge sense of neighborhood in northern Manhattan. And it's something I care about very, very much because we can all make each other's lives easier if we talk to each other, if we work together, if we support each other. And I always had this underlying feeling that the shrine could do more and could be a better neighbor. And I was asked to apply to the position of executive director the previous time it was that position came open. And at the time I had 4 teenagers, and that was not conducive to heavy-duty work. So by the time it opened up again and I applied, it seemed like a really good fit.
Well, I agree. And I'm glad it was the right time for you as well. Mm-hmm. A little bit about the shrine, I was saying. In 1946, Pope Pius XII canonized St. Francis Xavier Cabrini and declared her the patron saint of immigrants. And for those who didn't know, Mother Cabrini became the first canonized U.S. citizen. Her vocation remains more relevant than ever to the U.S. and the world, and how appropriate is that the shrine is in one of the most multicultural and diverse neighborhoods, and this our beloved neighborhood in New York City, Washington Heights, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have people who come in all the time. There's a time a couple years ago in May where the priest had said, we'll all say the rosary. Anybody whose first language isn't English, come up and say the first half of a Hail Mary. And there were 9 different languages. Wow. On just a random Sunday morning. It was really beautiful. And I think that whole working together thing has to happen across cultural lines, has to happen across socioeconomic lines, has to happen in every single possible way.
Do you feel the people in the neighborhood take advantage of it?
Sometimes. Yeah. Some do, some don't. Right. I mean, people are people-y.
Yes.
It's not everybody does what they should. That's no surprise.
no surprise at all. No. What would you and if you could put it down, crank it down into a nutshell, it's just too many things to ask you, but is there one particular aspect of the shrine that and that it offers the neighborhood that you wish more people knew about?
Peace.
Yeah.
Peace. People come in and all the time say, it's so peaceful here. It's so beautiful here. And that, in fact, has informed a lot of our programming because I believe very strongly that we can't be good neighbors to each other and we can't be good human beings unless we're at peace ourselves, because you can't offer what you don't have. And also, when your heart is at peace, you are more likely to respond than to react.
Well said. We all could use a little more peace in our lives, I think. For those of you who don't know, Mother Cabrini founded the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This order's charitable aim focuses on people in need and has devoted itself to building orphanages, schools, and healthcare facilities across the country. For anyone who has been paying attention in the last 30 years, our society has moved more towards secular culture than sacral, or less emphasis, we'll say, on sacral traditions.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about the joyful and maybe not so joyful challenges of your own vocation and, in your efforts to extend her ministry by helping and serving others through peace?
I think the thing about one of the things I've learned since being there is that it's often more important to know what to say yes to than what to say no to. Like if you see the need of someone else, you say yes and you respond. If no always feels like rules and shutting things down, whereas yes opens up the world, kind of like improv, right?
Yes,
move
and.
it forward. Yes,
Yep.
and let's move it forward.
Do I hear a Mother Cabrini improv troupe forming?
I don't know about that, but I walked into the shrine when I took the position. It was COVID, and the place was shut.
Right.
And locked down. And the first thing I did was say to my boss, who's the provincial, we need to open, because if all we can do is provide a place for people to be at peace and people to pray, we have to do all we can do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we opened up. But thinking of it as a place of peace and a place to offer peace really is how we ended up doing a lot of arts programming.
Well, and I love that. I'm going to talk about that right now, actually, because, also I want to say before we get too much into the cultural arts program is that, one of the things you've done successfully, I think, is to find ways to invite the outside world in.
Absolutely.
I think you've done a really great job and interact with the shrine, or just use it as a house of refuge, if you will,
right.
Which way they want to choose that for. So through your cultural outreach efforts, you have been presenting live performances, meditations, workshops at the shrine for some time now. And so how do you go about saying yes and choosing this programming?
Well, one yes leads to another.
Yeah.
One yes leads to another. When during COVID and everybody is locked in their little apartments and sick of each other and desperately lonely and frustrated, and one of the things we lost was serendipity. Like everything, we had to plan everything, and everything had to be in order all the time. And there's tremendous pressure. And so the first thing that I said yes to was the idea to do something to give people beauty in their days. So we did a program called Making Space for Serenity. And every Wednesday night at 6:30, we lit the chapel with candles. And we invited one musician. Not a wind instrument. Because we can seat 375 people, which meant there's plenty of space for social distancing. Now, you couldn't do performances because that was performance.
Yes.
But under the rubric of prayer and meditation, we did this Making Space for Serenity. And so we'd bring in the one musician and say, you play for an hour, take breaks as you need to, no talking, no applause, no explanation, no anything. We're just going to have an hour of music and beauty.
Awesome.
And so people could get out of their houses and out of their heads and let their hearts open up a little bit.
I love that. The meditation through music, the meditation through whatever, just in quiet. It's also a good one.
It's just, we need healing.
Yeah.
We need healing in all kinds of ways. And and it's not about trying to force religion down anybody. It's about the heart needs healing. The heart needs to open up. The heart needs beauty. And the arts do that.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And are you still doing it?
No, we didn't, because we did it for 2 summers. The first year we did 30 of them.
Wow.
And we didn't
a lot
take
of
any
candles.
money. Yeah, it was a lot of candles. We didn't take any money. We put out a basket, and people make donation if they wanted. All the money went to the musicians.
Nice.
So then we did it when we got to the summer, and it was too light to do it at night, unless I was going to work 14-hour days instead of 12.
Yeah.
What we did was we moved it outside, and I worked with Jazwa High, and we started a series called Melting Pot Jazz.
Sure.
So we
Mark and
took
Louise.
we took the idea of Mother Cabrini as the patron of immigrants and applied it to jazz. And so we have a lawn on the outside of the chapel, and people could come and bring their picnic dinners and sit there. And one week it was a Nigerian trio, and the next week it was tango, and the next week it was something else. And it became people would say it's like a mini Tanglewood. Yeah, you could just come and enjoy it. Because what did we need then at that point, as things started opening up, is we needed to rebuild community. And music, again, is a great bonding thing for community. And in that sense, but you could actually be with other people and be around other people and start to relearn how to interact.
Yeah, we missed that connectivity.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Well, aside from the cultural options you've been offering people through your programming, can you tell us also a bit about the other services, perhaps the pilgrimages through the shrine you want people to know about? Because I think it's a really cool thing that people don't know about. You were off camera earlier telling me about you had a whole, well, I won't say a pilgrimage, but I'll say you had a very, very large Italian family come in earlier today. But my point is, like, a pilgrimage is the same principle, right? You have a group of people coming for a purpose, and sometimes they're larger than others. But
so we had, in the beginning of March, there was a major motion picture about Mother Cabrini that was released, and since that time, and we'd have pilgrimage groups before, but since that time, we've been running at about 1,000 people a week.
it's amazing.
And so if the buses pull up and people come out, and that's what they're doing, is they're coming in to learn about Mother Cabrini. And we have a whole program that we run, and a whole talk that we do, and it's a way for people who, especially for people of faith, to come and learn. People who aren't people of faith who want to learn about her, glad to talk to you. Mm-hmm. It's just because she's one of the most famous neighbors we have. Most people up here don't even know she exists. But
she's never out. She's always sleeping.
Not sleeping, resting.
Resting. Sorry.
But yeah, no, she never gets out and about so much.
Yeah.
But she was a phenomenal woman, and she was a tremendous businesswoman at a time when women didn't do that kind of thing.
Yeah. She was an entrepreneur.
She was, absolutely.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's great, and I just wanted to make sure people knew about.
Good. Thank you.
Offerings there. My little, you're marketing here. I'm trying to help you with the marketing thing, But do you want to talk about Cabrini the movie at all? Not that we have to give a Roger Ebert, Siskel and Ebert review or anything, but it has to be a wonderful boon, much like The Lion King. I'm telling you right now, it's like when the movie came out for The Lion King was huge, and then there's the musical on Broadway, and there's always, my point is, like, having a movie about something going on. It's like Lion King's still around on Broadway for a reason. It's like that movie keeps on going and living on. Now it's on Disney Plus and everywhere else. Like, so having a movie to help.
Well, I think
move
the thing
things
that's
around
interesting,
is nice, right?
Yeah, it is. It's not a religious movie. And that's something that's important for people to know. This is a story about her and her character, and really encapsulates the first 18 months of her voyage to the U.S. And she came specifically to help very, very, very poor migrants on the Lower East Side, and primarily from Italy. And she is someone who is an absolute paragon of resilience, which again is something that we need today. Mm-hmm. Compassion, we need compassion. Courage, boldness. What does that actually look like? We've forgotten.
Yeah.
We've forgotten. And so I think that is, there's something that she can talk to, that we can all learn about, even if you're not somebody of faith. She has a certain strength of character that you're not thinking of. When you think nun, that's not, you might think, depends on where you went to school and when, but you might not think fierce.
I had nuns, I'm telling you right now.
But there was not an ounce of syrup in her. And I don't mean that she was unkind. She was tremendously kind, but she was not, there's not a flowery person. Very, very to the point, but kind all the time.
Well, kindness and peace, and these are buzzwords you've said throughout. Those aren't religious words.
No, they're not.
Know.
And although sometimes when someone who comes from a religious perspective says them, people will dismiss them, right?
There's a context to that because depending on where they're coming from, right?
Yeah. But when I look at our neighborhood, when I look at the arts, when I look at the people that walk in tears, I mean, we regularly have new migrants walk in. We regularly have people come in and fall down crying because their daughter's going to cross the desert alone. Mm. Or, the wife just got deported. Yeah. Or, something, there are horrible things that happen. We see them. Yeah. We see them. And we have to have the hearts to respond. When the bust-in migrants situation started, people say, well, I don't know, I'm so mad at that guy down there. And I say, you know what? I can do nothing about him. But the people who are here now are our neighbors. Mm-hmm. And we're called to be good neighbors. And so that's what we have to do.
Well, Inwood, Washington Heights, if anything, has always been an immigrant community. Yep. I mean, yes, and there's many a YouTube video and documentary you can watch on that, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And you can read it all about the Dykeman Farmhouse or wherever else. Right. But, particularly as soon as the IRT, the subway lines came up here, is that this was the place people could afford to live.
Right.
And we talked about, the groups. Right now, it's a very heavy Latin American community of many different forms of Latin America, not just one bit of the diaspora. Right. And before that, you had an Irish diaspora. Before that, you had a very predominantly Jewish diaspora. And then you had, a melting pot of Hungarian and whatever, melting pot of European. And then let's not forget the people who just grew up in America from the Midwest who also came from other various backgrounds come in. So we've always been a welcoming immigrant community. So I'm curious, given this, I know there's a lot of, we are getting an influx of, we'll just call them migrants for lack of a better term. They're immigrants, like we all have been hailed from. How do you see the influx of migrants and immigrants? Because they're going to be living in our communities quite prominently. There's a lot of rental buildings going up. There are at least, I don't know the exact number, but we have at least 6 buildings going up in our neighborhood that are high rises that are all rentals, and many of them are meant for affordable housing. And so, how do you see this changing our neighborhood? And I'm not saying for the worse or better. I'm just saying the impact as a longtime resident here.
You mean the migrants or just the housing?
Or
both, because they're two different issues.
The housing issues, obviously. Let's talk about the housing first and the migrants issue. Yeah.
Okay. I think the housing, if it's affordable, like actually affordable, and I know some of it was designed to be affordable relative to what's currently in this neighborhood. I think that can only help to preserve the neighborhood in certain ways because it allows the people who are here to be here, because people are getting priced out. There's no place to go, and we're beyond here. You hit the river, right?
Well, there's only the most popular form of transportation in New York City, if you didn't know, is the elevator.
Yeah,
because there's no more real estate. The only place you have to go is up. So
Exactly.
people you would have to leave the neighborhood if you can't go somewhere else.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Whether the new migrants are here in this particular neighborhood or not, I have no way of knowing. By and large, they haven't been. Partly because it is getting more expensive.
Yeah. Well, the point, reason I mentioned the migrants and the housing together is because of, there's a bit of transience now with the rentals in our neighborhood. It's like you can't really put equity in the neighborhood anymore. There's nowhere to buy.
Right.
It's either a co-op or very few condos/housing units to actually purchase. And let's just say you have to be very well off to be able to afford
True.
many of those that are
That's true.
that are built.
That's true.
But my hope is that we continue to move forward as a community with compassion.
Well, and that's
you know,
that. As you were talking, I was thinking, that whatever is going to happen, we can't operate from a point of fear. Because we can't be good people. We can't be kind people. We're never going to, if fear is at your core and fear is what's driving your actions and your words, you're not going to be compassionate. You're not going to be kind because, it's me first.
Yeah.
And, me first in an unhealthy way.
Right.
There are times when you have to put on your own oxygen mask first. But I think we have to be very wary. If we're going to continue to be a strong neighborhood and a welcoming neighborhood, we have to be very, very wary of not falling into fear.
Couldn't agree more. And keeping the doors open, right?
As much as you can.
Welcome people.
As much as you can. You can welcome people even if you can't help them every way that they need help or that they want it, or that you want to help, or but really strive.
And going back to what you said earlier, we've lost the serendipitous interactions, and we've also lost the sense of connectivity with community.
Right.
And just because you can connect in one moment doesn't mean you're responsible for all the moments.
That's right. The other thing that we lost, I think, in COVID was, we developed a sense of helplessness. We lost a sense of agency. Yeah. And in losing that, we lose some of our humanity, but we also lose some of our resilience, because how do you help? How do you make it better? And people were so hurt and so isolated that they really couldn't think of that. And as we move on and grow from that difficult time, because that's what we have to do, right? Even if we were hurt, even if we were scarred, we still have to grow and to really think about in terms of what can I do on what level? When the bused immigrants first came in and we put out a call to the neighborhood to bring in basic supplies, deodorant and toothbrush and toothpaste, people thanked us for doing that because it gave them something they could do. If all you can do is give someone a toothbrush, well, do it. Right? It's not the same as being helpless. We're not helpless. We may be helpless to do the big things that we want to do, but we're never helpless to do the small things that are given to us.
Great words and great advice.
Well, thanks.
And so give this lady your toothpaste. And maybe some
do I have something in my teeth?
No, not at all. But my point is, I think it's really wonderful the fact that we can keep waving the flag for connectivity, and going back to what we said earlier, through again using Mother Cabrini as an example and her agency. We're talking about having agency. Us looking inwards. I'm gonna get a little philosophical here, folks. Pardon me, but looking inwards to your own agency and how does that manifest,
right.
and how can you again, in a moment, help someone. It doesn't have to be your life calling. You don't have to direct an orphanage or a school. But within those moments,
Well, I think
but being outside yourself, right?
One of the things I love about Mother Cabrini is, she founded these orphanages and helped hundreds of thousands of kids. But she was as content to sweep an orphanage as to found one. And we have to be as content to do the things that we can do, that need doing, that we see, without getting all bent out of shape about it.
Yeah.
If I am going to put my energy into being angry that somebody littered, well, I could use 1/10 of that amount of energy and pick up the piece of paper. We do have choices here. We can, but if we choose just to be irritated, I was telling somebody today that the best piece of marriage advice I got, and I know you've been relatively recently married.
I can use all the help I can get.
Was that she said, you're allowed to be annoyed by 3 things in your spouse. It can be any 3. It can be what they do with their socks, how they dry the dishes, anything. Any more than 3, it's not them, it's you.
Can you rotate those 3? Is the question.
You can.
Okay,
yes, you
great.
can.
Thank you. That's all that matters.
But it's really true. We can, if you're angry about everything all the time,
right.
and if everything's under your skin, That's about your skin.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to work. With 5 kids, I'd say, they're pushing my buttons. Well, whose buttons are they?
Yeah.
They're mine.
They're yours.
Who's responsible for my buttons?
So I'm going to take this opportunity to apologize to my wife for all those 3 things and beyond those 2.
Yeah.
But I think it is important, though, and I think it's also great advice. You should write an advice column. We could publish it. But I think it is important, though, for everyone to, if you want to sum it all up, everyone to look inward and take a moment to evaluate and seeing how they are contributing and how can they, if they should choose, be helpful.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Well,
I agree.
Julia, it's been wonderful having you on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up that we haven't talked about?
No, other than, if you have ideas for community events and you want to collaborate, let me know.
Great. And where can they find you on the web?
CabriniShrineNYC.org.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
And, ending with that, I'm so glad she said that because it saves me my last question is that you heard my statement of the arts. If you didn't, go back and listen to the episode, the first one of season 5 here. And, everyone's always asking me, Aaron, I need a venue. Do you know a venue? Do you know da-da-da-da? They have a wonderful venue with a wonderful, is it an organ or just piano?
We have both, but
Yes.
The thing about the space is the acoustics are fantastic.
They're beautiful.
Particularly
for strings.
Or for voice, or for piano. We have a very good piano.
Yeah.
So it's, and I'm glad to help host. It is my time too. So
Exactly.
But
She's on the clock.
Not really.
You got to do the work though. Okay. She'll unlock the doors.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I will.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Once again, please contact Julia. And thank you, Julia, for taking the
you.
time and being on this episode of Inwood Art Works
Excellent.
on Air.
Thank you.
You betcha. So this is a nice, cultural spotlight here on Julia Attaway here on Inwood Art Works on Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, culture makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars, please. It really helps. Thanks to the Church of Good Shepherd here in Inwood for hosting us, and to heightsites.com for the Uptown local promotional support. You can support On Air and any of our programming by making a donation to inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Artworks. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Art Works On Air is proud to be sponsored in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and Inwood Art Works programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.